Hello, and welcome to an overview of Universal Design for Learning, also known as UDL. My name is Travis Engstrand, and I am excited to work as a digital learning coach beginning this fall. I have taught at multiple schools and in multiple content areas in the district over the last 9 years. Along with my colleagues, I have been interested in finding ways to meet the needs of all learners. UDL offers a research-based approach to promote the inclusion of all learners, enhance engagement, and improve achievement. Additionally, UDL is useful for students across the learning spectrum, from AP to special education to English language development. UDL is comprised of 3 core principles: representation, action and expression, and engagement. Representation refers to how we present information to students. In the diverse classroom, it is important for students to access content in various ways. For example, students might have the option to watch a video, read an article, or independently conduct their own research to learn about a particular concept. Expression refers to students demonstrating what they know by providing various assessment options. Engagement refers to tapping into learners' interests and offering appropriate challenges in order to increase motivation. Although UDL is a differentiation strategy, it does not mean creating individualized lessons for every student. It does, however, include choice in how information is acquired, choice in how students can engage with the content, and choice in how students demonstrate mastery. So, what does UDL look like in practice? The implementation of UDL is an ongoing process that usually starts small and builds up over time, and can start with just 1 or 2 lessons. Over time, teachers might develop a more elaborate UDL model. This may include strategic grouping, differentiated assignment design, and student-selected assessments. A strong collaborative PLC is one of the most effective methods in facilitating this type of work. What follows are 2 examples of Grossmont teachers implementing UDL and differentiating instruction by offering students choices during instruction and assessment.
Hi, my name is Annika Gooden, and I'm a teacher at El Cajon Valley High School. I'm a science teacher over there, and I've taught many different levels of science, but this year I'm teaching freshman space and earth science and a couple classes of newcomer EL science. So when I think about universal design for learning, I think about how, honestly, as an adult, I've learned a lot about how I learn, but I've also learned how a lot of my colleagues learn differently from me, and I think that's true of our students as well. And I think everybody learns a little bit differently, and I think everybody has different experiences and backgrounds that they bring. And so I try to see it, I think, from my students' perspectives as far as what do they need. And I think every student, because of their different experience, needs something a little bit different. I have definitely heard a lot of concerns about differentiation as far as the time it takes to prepare all these lessons, and I can definitely understand that perspective. I would just say, I really don't make, 30 different versions of an assignment for sure. I only maybe make 2 different versions. And once I have the original version, it's really just a few tweaks here and there in order to make either a more advanced or a more supported or scaffolded version of that assignment. And so, and I don't do it every day, and I don't do it with every assignment, but I do it when I can. And I think just little by little, as much as we can help out our students in that way. My classes are pretty diverse because I do teach a lot of English learners at El Cajon Valley. So some of my classes are dedicated to newcomers, specifically students who've been in the United States probably less than a year and are at the very beginner level of English. And some of those students have had a full educational history in another language, and some of those students have had interrupted formal education. And so even within the class, there's a wide variety between students who are literate versus less literate. And then in my freshman class, I have the full gamut of a typical college prep class. So I have, your mainstream student. I have English learners who may have been here in the United States for several years. I have students with IEPs and 504s as well in that class. In this lesson, we had been learning about the sun and how fusion creates heat in the sun.
This assignment is titled Listening, and it's entitled the Z Machine. So you're going to find out what the Z Machine is, has to do with the sun, which we've been learning about this week. Okay, but in Google Classroom, you can see it says you have a choice. You can either listen to the podcast, it's a short 3 to 4 minute video, or it has a transcript that you can also read of the podcast.
And I wanted to give them an example of maybe how real scientists learn about the sun, even though we can't travel to the sun. And so there was a story on ListenWise, which is an online tool called the Z Machine, and students could learn about this model that scientists are using to model the sun and what's happening in the sun. And I enjoyed being able to give students the opportunity to choose whether they wanted to just play the 4-minute audio and listen to it, or whether they wanted to read through the transcript and find what they were looking for that way. So another tool that I've really only started using this year that has gone district-wide is Actively Learn. And with Actively Learn, there are some really neat ways to be able to differentiate. And one of those is the extra help feature within Actively Learn. And so you can designate a certain group of students who are perhaps English learner or struggling or even advanced, and you can give them differences in the questions themselves. And so, for example, if you designate a student as needing extra help, you could put more notes within the text, embed more notes and images within the text, or you could give them sentence starters with which to answer the questions that you've put in the reading. You could even get creative and perhaps add additional questions to that group on a certain day, or however you'd like to differentiate it. In this lesson, there was no difference in how I was assessing them. They all had to answer the same questions based on either how they received the input, either listening or reading. And the other activity they were doing, we were pausing to review some of the vocabulary that we've been learning along the way. And so Quizlet is a great tool for that a lot of teachers use. But the thing that I really like about Quizlet is students can choose which type of activity they want to use to learn. And so to make this more explicit for students, I put on the whiteboard, if these words are less familiar to you, you need to slow down. These are the Quizlet activities I recommend. If you feel like you've got a good handle on most of these words, then start to challenge yourself and maybe play some of the games that they offer on Quizlet. And some of the students across the room were starting to time themselves and compete how fast they could complete the games and compete with each other. So it all just depended on where the student was at and how they preferred to review the vocabulary.
My name is Teresa Stanley, and I teach at Santana High School, and I'm teaching mathematics and in the digital fabrication pathway. If I was going to explain universal design to newer teachers coming into the industry, I would say that the best way to be able to get everybody in your classroom kind of on the same page is not doing the same thing on the same page. I think that you would be able to teach a wide range of students of abilities, high and low, or even somewhere in the middle, if you give them a little bit of choice of what it is that they're going to be doing, but also make sure that you have challenges there, because those honors kids who might be in your classroom are going to need that challenge. But then you don't want to make everything so high so the person who's kind of struggling at the bottom doesn't feel like they can reach that capacity. So having a wide range of problems that you're solving together, you can always make it a little bit more challenging using stronger vocabulary or difficult numbers, where you can take that same concept and not use as many vocabulary words into that, or use the numbers so they're a little bit nicer to work with, but you're still teaching the exact same standard. I feel that student choice is important because if they don't have some type of buy-in on what it is, then they're not going to be as engaged. If you have teachers always saying, okay, this is what you're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, then you kind of lose some of that excitement in the math that a lot of students fear in math. So universal design for learning, I would say differentiating would be just grouping those high-level students with those low-level students, because they really do want to talk to each other. If you're in a classroom and it's like, no, don't talk or don't say anything, they're really not engaging. So there definitely should be that mathematical discourse happening in all the classrooms. I think that once you get those students at least grouped accordingly, then they can feed off of each other, which is really nice. So I do give direct instruction, and I try and limit it. Usually for that class, I don't go any more than probably about 15 to 18 minutes. So the diversity I have in this classroom, there are about 34 students total in the program. They're all sophomores. And actually, I believe I do have 2 juniors that are retaking the class from last year. I have, out of the 34, I believe I have 8 IEPs, and I have 2 504s. So in that, the students are already coming with their paperwork of what their capabilities are and what their limitations are. So in that, that's another reason of how I base the students with the strengths, and that can help them with whatever their paperwork shows. And so with that, out of the 34, I'm able to get really good groups that are able to help each other. The students are very supportive of each other. They don't know who's the high and who's the low in the group because I don't talk about that.
She helps out everyone, and the way she teaches makes sure the ones that don't really get it are involved, like as much as the people that get it, that usually like answer the questions. So she likes to call on the people that don't usually get it, and sometimes I would go like help other people, like I've helped Javier in the past.
And I group the students too high and too low for the whole year. They're like this. And then at the end of every unit, we switch. And so I keep kind of a roster to see who the high and who the low are. So that way, when I reshuffle the students, they're always working with somebody different. Another activity that I use to differentiate is students are able to pick 2 or 3 questions that they want to use on their quiz, and so I get to collect sample problems from the students. So that kind of is like they're choosing which questions that they're going to be quizzed on, and so out of the whole bank that they choose, then that's where the quiz comes from. So they've kind of already seen what the questions are, but they don't know which or how many I'm going to put on the test. So it's kind of like students are helping me create what the curriculum is going to be in the class based on the standards for that lesson.
You can see that although implementing UDL takes thoughtful planning, the opportunity for students to have a choice in their learning process results in a more engaged classroom where students take ownership in their work.